Zap. Okay. That's it. Okay, a little bit more. Oh. Buying a condo. Yay. And they're going to use it as a rental, and they're thinking of Airbnb. How many of your clients have their properties on Airbnb? If they have a second home in a resort area, don't count on that. How many people have used Airbnb? I have. Yeah. You know, I used Airbnb. I finally signed up for Uber because we were in New Orleans, and I know I said I never was going to, but we didn't. We were there for an extra 2 days, and I wasn't going to rent a car, so we tried Uber. It wasn't bad, but New Orleans or Uber? The two people with Uber weren't bad. My husband was there, and he chit-chatted with them. I don't know if I'd use Uber on my own. I just, I don't know. So, but I've used Airbnb, and I just got my reminder. We're going to California in a couple of weeks to see my sister, and she lives in a trailer, in an adult home. So, not adult home, adult park, and so. We're actually renting from the same Airbnb person that we did last year. So, yeah. My second payment is due because they charge you some and then some when you go. So, do insurance companies like Airbnb usage? So, Vermont Mutual?
Yeah, they don't even charge for the
Wow, good for them.
And they rent to hundreds.
Ooh. Well, you know, it depends. As far as Airbnb, they do, you do get rated by the people that rent to you, and you rate the people that you rent from. So, you know, I don't know. But Vermont Mutual used to do a bed and breakfast endorsement when I was an agent, so they are of that ilk. But it could be a problem in today's world. And I hear MPIUA is not enamored with it. So, at least not under the homeowner's policy. I might need to go to dwelling fire. But it is out there, and you could go online and just look to see if your insured's addresses are there. You might be surprised. Who knows? So, now if they're buying a condo, and they're going to rent it out, do they still qualify for a condo policy? It depends. It really does. The definition of residence premises under the HO6, I don't care what edition it is, it means the unit where you reside. If you don't ever live there, should you have a unit owner policy? If you live there and rent it out, could you qualify? Yeah. But do you have restrictions in the policy that you'd want to get rid of? So, historically, there's been an endorsement for unit owner rental. It's just how much do we want to play with? And on page 118, this is the endorsement that's been around since the dawn of little condo time, HO 76 and beyond. Unit owner rental to others. But it can be problematic, and I need to make sure that I have a meeting of minds with the insurance company as to how much rental they want. Because it says unit owner rental to others, that's a name, great. Coverage provided by this policy is the first sentence is extended to apply while the residence premises is regularly rented or held for rental to others. If you rent it out 52 weeks a year, do you still qualify for this endorsement? That's up to the company. It's whether they're going to invoke the residence premises definition and use it against you, which has been done with both houses and condos across the country. Again, if residence premises means the unit where you reside, who's you? The named insured under the condo policy, correct? If you don't ever live there, then do you have a residence premises? And that's the school of thought that companies have used to deny claims with this endorsement as well with the homeowner's policy. So if you don't live there, you don't have a residence premises. If you don't have a residence premises, what coverage do you have left? Which can be problematic. Some courts don't like companies using definitions as exclusions. They think you should make it an exclusion. And other courts go along with it. So, you know, and so an agent had this endorsement on a year-round rental, and the company still, you know, reneged on the claim when the condo building burned down. And he said, but I got this endorsement. And this is the sentence they used to deny the claim. Coverage provided by this policy is extended to apply while the residence premises is regularly rented or held for rental to others. That's what the agent said. And the adjuster said, and that's why we're not paying. And the agent said, what the heck are you talking about? Again, while the residence premises is regularly rented. If you don't live there, you don't have a residence premises, therefore we're not paying the claim. Our idea of the endorsement is you live in it, but maybe rent it out regularly every summer. Or if it's up the mountains, every winter. But you do use it to live in. So after a lot of angst, the company finally paid the claim and then said, go through all your HO6s with this endorsement, and if it's regular rental, put them in dwelling fire. Fine. So regularly, it's all about the residence premises. They didn't, you know, regularly rented, yeah. But if you don't ever live there, you don't have a residence premises, therefore, you don't have coverage. And is it worth taking to court if it's a contents claim? I don't know. So, I have a meeting of the minds, and is renting it out for a few weeks all right, but Airbnb whenever they want to, do we want that? And that's entirely up to the company. Entirely up to the company. Not up to me. They still might use it to live in, but when they can rent it out on Airbnb, they don't. I mean, and if it's a second home, then obviously you've got some place to go, your primary home. So I need to know what the company wants. And on page 119, because of the whole residence premises issue in the homeowner's policy, I mean, I think the homeowner's policy should say home owning and living in its stupid policy, but it just says homeowner's policy. So if you look at homeowners and you own the home, the fact that you don't live in it means nothing to you, correct? Right. I mean, I can totally see that. I own it. It's a home. Life is good. No. You don't live there. If you don't live there, you don't have a residence premises. And under the HO3, that means you don't have coverage A, B, C, D, and E, because it's all relegated to the residence premises. So ISO suggested in 2015 that companies should send out this little questionnaire every year just to see if the named insured is actually living in the house. Does any company utilize this questionnaire? It'd be nice if they did, because at least you know what's going on out there. But just because ISO suggests something doesn't mean the company has to do it. And it just, you know, does somebody live there on the inception date? Because if you don't live there on the inception date, chances are you ain't living there at all. And it's a home owning, not living in situation, you need dwelling fire. Or do you want to rent it out for 2 or 3 months every summer? Okay, so it would give rise to a conversation to help us make sure that the insured has the proper insurance policy. What my husband realized, though, is you can have the same insurance company, you can have the same dwelling limit, but when you go from a homeowner's policy to a dwelling fire policy, guess what happens? The price goes up. My husband noticed that. I said, yay. Pay more, get less. That's insurance, the way we like it. What can I say? But it is what it is. I'd rather have a properly insured and pay a claim than have a problem at the time of a claim. So Airbnb, actually that's, you know, from a home standpoint, but actually from the HO6, from a liability standpoint, if I rent out to more than 2 roomers or boarders, do I have a liability problem? And I do, 91, 2000, 2011. From an HO3 standpoint, I'm also not eligible, 91, 2000, 2011. unless I rent it as a family unit. I can have a 2-family home, rent out an apartment, great. But if I'm renting it out to unrelated roomers or boarders, that gets to be commercially. And some companies will do it, some companies won't. But if they do it under the HO3, I need that bed and breakfast endorsement to change the number of roomers or boarders, which I think Andover companies used to do it a long time ago too. I don't know what they do now.
Do you need it for exchange students too?
Exchange students, are they roomers or boarders? You know, I'd ask the company. I mean, roomers or boarders, to me, our insured did this unbeknownst to us until the homeowners person called her. They had a big old house, had colleges in the area, so she rented out rooms to college students. That's a roomer or boarder. Exchange student, yeah, it's gray. I would want it, you know, I'd want to be proactive with the underwriter, get them on my side, get an email, and then, hey, if the claims person said that's wrong, it's like, it's not wrong this time, is it? Because I've got an email with the underwriter. Was that the intention of that restriction? I don't think so. But I'm not paid to think, as the saying goes. I didn't know exchange students paid. I thought they exchanged and just stayed there. And you took care of them.
But there's no children of her to exchange, so she has students.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, there's no, that's,
She gets paid to take them in.
yeah.
Well, that's a little problem. 2, magic number 2.
Yeah.
House swaps, are you paying or swapping your house? If I'm not paying, then it might be something, if the company found out about, they might not want to stay on the risk. But if I'm not paying, it's not a business and it's not roomers or boarders. Roomers or boarders imply exchange of money. Does anybody swap their house? If you live down the Cape, you could do that. People from all over the world would want to do that. But I don't necessarily want you in my house. I saw that movie, that was cute, but I don't know if I want to go to your house and be totally demoralized when I get there. What some people have had bad experiences with Airbnb. They've gotten there and the people that were there before them have not left yet. Yay. Or it didn't look quite like the pictures. I've seen that when I've been looking at houses in the real estate book. You can make anything look like anything you want, but I don't know. Now the Accord application asks, this is the most recent one, farming, home office, telecommuter, daycare, and then there's a blank one. Well, I think you got to be specific with me. You know, what do you do to make any money at all would be a question I'd ask, and then we'll work backwards from that. And if I was an agent today, I'd say, oh, by the way, you on Airbnb? I might ask. Forewarned is forearmed. So as far as HO 91 is concerned, we exclude the rental holding for rental, and that can be a problem. Well, I don't actually rent it out, but are you holding it for rental? It's just nobody has wanted to rent from you. And it says this exclusion does not, arising out of the rental or holding for rental. So I have my place on Airbnb. They put their condo on Airbnb, available 52 weeks a year. They don't get people coming in, and when they don't have a room or a boarder, they use it themselves as a second home. Renting out and holding for rental are 2 different things. And holding for rental can also preclude me from liability coverage. And the same thing with the HO 2000-2011. The exclusion does not apply to the renting or holding for rental of on an occasional basis. Well, I only rent it out occasionally, but do you hold it for rental? Possibility all the time, see? And it all depends on how we want to interpret this. And from a liability standpoint, I don't like to play games. That's dangerous. That's dangerous. So I only rented it out twice last year, but did you hold it for rental anytime anybody wanted it? In which case, if that second time when somebody came, they get injured and sued, could we see if it worked in court to deny a claim? We can do a declaratory judgment, because if we can convince the judge you fit into the exclusion, we don't have to defend you either. MPIUA has done a few declaratory judgments and won. So either way, holding for rental, I got a problem, so I need to know. Did you only hold it for rental during summer, in which case now it's more occasionally. So. Alrighty, that can be the problem. And then we also say for those people that do it all the time, the exclusion does not apply in part for use only as a residence unless a single-family unit is intended for use by the occupying family to lodge more than 2 roomers or boarders. So where we rent in, I thought it was Hemet, but it's Winchester. It's close, California. It's a portion of their house. It's 2 rooms. There's 2 different beds. Could that have more than 2 roomers or boarders? Because it's got 2 bedrooms. Could we go with a couple that's a friend of ours? They could have 1 bedroom. We could have another. How many roomers or boarders does this family have now? 4. So they're already potentially have a problem with the 2 bedrooms. I don't want to be part of your house, because to me that's bed and breakfast, and I'm not going down that road unless you really are one. But there's a door and it locked. Of course, the interesting thing that my husband realized was it locks on their side, not on ours. I said, well, hon, you'll sleep on the side of the bed closest to the door. Works for me. But it was not a bad place. I enjoyed it, and we'll go back. Doesn't have a kitchen, that's fine. I'm on vacation, I eat out. They gave you a little refrigerator, that was nice. And TVs and Wi-Fi, which is more than the Marriott gives you for free. Yay. I get no refrigerator and no Wi-Fi here. And you pay a lot more here than you do in Winchester. So I've got to worry about those 2 things. And that's where, whether it's a 1, 2, 3, or 4 family home, I can rent out a section as a family unit, but when I rent to unrelated roomers or boarders, the liability exclusion has always said 2 would be the magic number. I can rent to a family of 12, but unrelated roomers or boarders, 2. And then ISO said, well, we've got the regular policy, but companies are starting to get upset with this, so we'll be proactive, and we'll create endorsements to totally exclude that activity for free. And so they created an endorsement, and when they did the endorsement, ISO created an advisory letter, which actually is a lot better than anything AIB writes for the auto policy. They at least tell you where the dog died. So every year they suggest homeowners get this. And that's the portion, and it pretty much says, oh, by the way, when you're a host, you could have a problem with your homeowner's policy. You have a problem with other structures. You have a problem with contents, personal property of your roomers or boarders. We don't really care about them. You have a problem with theft in that portion of the house you rent. You have a problem with carpeting and appliances, more than a certain amount of money, and you certainly have a liability exposure. So they're putting it in writing, you've got a problem. And when you're a renter, don't damage the stuff you're renting. If you damage the house you're renting, don't we have a care, cuss, and control exclusion like we saw when you're renting the venue for your wedding. Unless you light a match and burn it down, you got a little bitty problem here. So when in doubt, light a match. So it says before you get involved in this, you should review your homeowner's policy. But don't bother if one of these endorsements is on your policy, and that's a short version, but page 125. Home sharing host activities, a mandatory endorsement. What does that mean? What does a mandatory mean?
It changes it.
It changes it. Is that nebulous? Why don't they say home sharing host activities exclusionary endorsement? Because that's really what it is. ISO is very systematic, and with this endorsement that is free, it goes through every single part of the homeowner's policy and specifically lays out the Airbnb, vacation rental by owner, any of the, kind of like the transportation network, the internet network kind of activity. Piece by piece. I think they did an exceptional job on this endorsement. Just going through every little piece and taking away. You don't have to read that thing anymore because you've got nothing with this free, mandatory endorsement. Give me a break. Why don't you call it what it is? You ain't got nothing. Suck it up, buttercup. You're in trouble. So if this is on your renewal policy, I would take my home, condo, or whatever out of Airbnb because I got a problem with this. What it does is create new definitions. Home sharing host activities, kind of like the transportation network deal for Uber and whatnot for the auto policy. We name it network platform and then name you home sharing occupant. So we create new definitions. And then we modify the business definition. This is for the HO 2011 or HO 2000. Business means trade, profession, occupation. And then, so you don't have to worry about it, we say business means what? Home sharing activities. There is no doubt now. Well, was it a trade? Was it a profession? Was it an occupation? Or I earned less than $2,000 last year? It doesn't matter. It's, by definition, a business with this endorsement. Bang. Now, when we saw Munchkin and significant other moved in, we said significant other was not an insured, but if Munchkin wanted to cover his or her contents, Munchkin could do it, correct? Well, you can't do that when it comes to the people renting from you. Because first off, we're going to say, oh, by the way, a home sharing occupant is not a room or a boarder, it's a totally different entity. So anything that would apply doesn't apply here. And then we're specifically going to say that personal property does not cover a home sharing occupant stuff. So even if you wanted to do it, you can't. Their stuff is not covered. We're very specific about that. Can they go back to their homeowner's policy for loss of their contents? Yeah. And that's what they're going to have to do. You can't opt to cover their stuff. Currently, you could opt, depending on whether, well, they're not really a room or a boarder. If they're a room or a boarder, we don't cover their stuff anyways. Airbnb, a little bit gray. We're just going to say, no, we've created a whole category for them and we're not covering their stuff, period. They have to go back to their homeowner's policy, whether you want to do something or not. Now, we used to be able to, at your request, we can cover stuff of others. No, you can't invoke that, not covered, whether you want to do it or not. And then there's always been an exclusion for regularly rented apartments, contents in a regularly rented apartment, and you have to, on page 128, you have to go to the landlord's furnishings. And now we say, oh, by the way, that portion of the house you rent out qualifies. It's not regularly rented. I don't care. You don't have to worry about that anymore. I mean, I want it to be regularly rented. It's just not. Doesn't matter. It's got its own category. And primarily used for home sharing activities. And if you didn't understand that, we've got another separate exclusion. So we say it a bunch of times. If you say it enough times, it must be so, correct? So we're looking, we're not covering the stuff in the area that you rent out. Now, so there's 2 bedrooms, there's TVs, there's a microwave, there's a little refrigerator. None of that stuff that in that portion of the house that they rent out is covered. So it's, you know, got its own category. Property in that space rented. And again, we do not cover property. Used primarily for home sharing host activities. Any part of that house that you use, not going to be covered. So if you had something nice that the occupant liked and brought it home with them, not covered. And then coverage D, loss of use. Under the unendorsed homeowners policy, loss of rental income is covered. But we've created this activity and this definition, and now we physically say we do not cover any fair rental value arising out of home sharing host activity. So if Hurricane Michael comes up, or Hurricane Irma last year, a lot of people in Florida put their houses up on Airbnb. Their homeowners policy might have been able to pay loss of rental income and might have denied other things through the business exclusion, but with this, they ain't getting that either. They're not getting that either. So that is not any kind of rental income we're going to pay. And then coverage A and B. Supposing you had a sconce like that on the wall in the room that Irene rented, and she really liked that. So she had Bud go out and buy a screwdriver and take it down, and we packed it up and brought it home with us. You now have a gaping hole in your... And the homeowner's policy covers theft of building items because it's not excluded. But now we exclude it that if it has something to do with home sharing activities. And there's always a potential, even when you rent out an apartment, can you have miscreants rent it that have wild parties and do major damage to that portion you rent? Yep. And if that happens, don't call, we don't care. Your normal homeowner's policy might cover it if you got past the business restriction. Now we're just flatly excluding that. And we do the same thing for contents. Vandalism or theft of items, not covered. So don't put anything you like in that room. Kind of like, you know, a padded cell, I don't know. So we go to the dollar store. Dollar Tree, my favorite store in the whole world. I just went and bought a bunch of stuff for my twins. That was cheap. They can play dress up at my house now. And unfortunately, liability specifically says business means host sharing activity. So the host, the occupant falls down and breaks their crown, they sue you, not covered. They have guests come over that visit the person renting, and they get injured, not covered. Anything to do with an injury that had something that to do with you renting it out on Airbnb, nobody, when they sue you, because they can, you have no defense, you have no BI and PD to others. So you might be able to argue things with the unendorsed homeowners policy. If we add this free amendatory endorsement to your policy, you can argue all day long and you will lose. I think if a lawyer looked at that, they'd say, never mind, you're not. My billing rate is $200 an hour. If they say, I'll take it for 25%, then you know you've got a chance. And no, my billing rate, all of a sudden, they will charge by the hour. And it's free. So if the company uses that endorsement, ISO says, they could choose not to if you want to pay money to have the activity covered. So ISO then created a whole set of endorsements. It's interesting. The exclusionary endorsement, there's one for each form, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 8. The buyback endorsement, there's one for each form. We're not even going to go down the road of there's a little tweak and difference between the HO3 and the HO5, and one size does not fit all. We specifically made an endorsement for each coverage form. One to exclude it effectively, one to buy it back effectively. I have no idea how much it costs. But if I am on Airbnb and the company was going to use the mandatory endorsement, removing coverage, unless I bought this endorsement for however much it costs, and I've got to buy the endorsement. Or I have to look at how often do I rent out? Is it worth my while? When Bud and I first got married, he put together fitness equipment on the side. Now, when I wasn't married to him, I didn't care what he did. You put together fitness equipment, you don't put it together right and somebody gets injured, not my problem. However, once we're married, does it become my problem? So I said, go down to the agent and discuss commercial liability coverage. And he came back and said, guess I won't be doing that anymore. Because he didn't do it that much that he felt it wasn't worthwhile to pay the premium for that endorsement. Because he knew doing it without insurance was a non-option with Irene, especially in the first 2 years of the marriage, but he's learned that since. Anyways, if it's an insurance issue, it's just not worth the battle. So other people can do things without buying insurance, not in our household. This endorsement effectively buys everything back. So again, all the same definitions, bam, 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 bam. modifies a business definition, reinforces that home sharing occupants are not room as boarders or guests, and unless it specifically says it, there is no coverage. But now with this endorsement, you can buy back the other structure that's used for home sharing activities. You can buy back the coverage for your contents in that area that you rent out. Or it's not excluded anymore, shall we say. It's always been your stuff. And loss of rental income is covered. Home sharing business activities. And we even say, which is interesting, contract is entered into, and even if the hurricane doesn't hit you, if there was a watch and people had to evacuate like they did with Michael or they did with Irma, a lot of people evacuated, and so therefore you're not going to go down and rent that place, even if their place wasn't damaged. If your Airbnb got, rental options got canceled, we would give you the money for that. So we're actually giving you back coverage. And landlord's furnishings, again, if regularly rented area, we will, if you put appliances in, we will cover that. And theft. We will cover theft in that section that you rent out. We're not covering, and I said it a little bit incorrectly, we're not covering theft of their stuff. We're covering theft of your stuff that's in the area that you rent out. So when they bring home all the little knickknacks, because they've never seen those before, if you wanted to put in a claim, you could. Might not be the best idea, but at least theft is covered. So I said it wrong in the book. We are never covering the property of the home sharing occupant. That's not going to happen. We're just covering your stuff in the area that you rent out. And we even made your homeowner's policy primary. Now, Airbnb at first never provided liability coverage or property coverage. It's more like if they damage your property and you want to make a claim and you can't get together with them, we might pay something. Now they let you buy liability coverage. But we're going to let your homeowner's policy be primary. So, and you've got business liability coverage. I have no idea how much this endorsement costs. Now, Vermont Mutual, what did did they have their own endorsement for Airbnb?
Yes.
Okay, sorry to, pick on you.
No, that's all right.
So, hey, I know.
I realized you were talking to me.
I know, I'm sorry, that's fine. I've been there, done that. I was in Bruce Thomas's class and he asked my opinion. I said, I have none because I was not listening to you at this point in time, Bruce. But so they probably don't go into anything this big and long, but it can happen. So if you see these in the mandatory endorsement in the future, it is not a nice mandatory. So then I'd need to caution my clients. If your client calls up and asks how their homeowner's policy would respond to Airbnb, what should be your next question? Are you doing it? Because they're not asking out of the blue sky there. If they ask about how their homeowner's policy would address them using their house on Airbnb or their condo, should we ask if they're thinking of doing it or actually doing it?
I think they probably are.
Yeah. And in which case, once you know something, what's your obligation in life? Tell the company. And then your next issue to me is, but if I tell the company, they'll get off the risk.
You send the client a note saying these are the costs, these are the consequences.
Realistically, from an E&O 101, what the agent knows, the company knows. So if I know the company doesn't want to be on the Airbnb, should I tell them? In the first 60 days of the policy, what can they do? Cancel it. And after 60 days, could they still consider that a physical increase in hazard? And what can they do? Cancel it. So I really need to let my company know, because other than that, if there is a situation and I haven't let them know and they have to pay out anything, what could they do? Come back after me, because had I let them know and if they had canceled it, there wouldn't have been a claim they had to worry about. And that's the same, that is the issue with any coverage we sell. What we know, if we know it's an underwriting issue, we have to be careful. And about 5 other things and we're done. I'm not going through all that, yay. Page 137. We're not getting into this because it's 4:30 and you got 5 minutes. And I got one more CE check-in, so don't go away out there either. You're getting done early as it is. How do you know, how does an insured determine how much building coverage they need for a condo? Bylaws? Or deed? Or both? How many people, anybody here own a condo? I wouldn't buy a condo because I don't like the insurance issues. But can they insure anything they need to insure under the HO6? A building issue? Yeah, they can. Yeah. I mean, really, if you look, 91, 2000, 2011, the definition of dwelling says anything in my unit. Items are real property which pertain exclusively to my unit. Does that mean I have to own it? No, it's just a designated area for me. Property which the association tells me to insure, which is always poor because they don't give much direction in life. And separate structures. Any kind of building item I can insure. The issue is I probably don't want to duplicate things. And it's, you know, I worry about, and this is not in your book, from an ISO standpoint, the commercial policy can cover anything the bylaws tell us to, or tells them to. The BOP endorsement, BP 1707 is the one we use in Massachusetts. 1701 is the one in the rest of the real world, or the condo association form. If the condo agreement, which is the long term for bylaws, tells the association to insure it, can they insure it? Can the association insure everything in my unit that's attached to the walls? Yeah. But do I want to make sure that they actually do? And, you know, I just worry. And do some companies, not in your book, write all-in endorsements because they don't want to read the bylaws? Again, that's great. The association's covering everything. Are they doing it well? Because I would bet in this day and age that most master policies are underinsured. I just have this feeling after reading certain court cases. And not in your book, and then I'll let you go. I got this on my user group for associations. Last fall, our entire condo complex was destroyed by wildfires. Total loss. We're now discovering we are short about 5 million. Yay. Wow. So who gets to make that up? The unit owner, right? Yeah. Because the association owns nothing. Everything is owned either commonly or individually. The association is us. They're just there to do the right thing, and obviously not so much. I think it's hard for all-in bylaws or endorsements to really know what the value of every unit is. And when the association's underinsured, bottom line, who's hurt? We all are. Now, this person didn't quite understand. They said any special assessment is out of the question. I think, are you on drugs? Obviously, an assessment is necessary here. But loss assessment under the unit owner policy only applies when what is damaged? Commonly owned property, not commonly insured property, commonly owned property. And I don't think all 5 million had to do with commonly owned property being underinsured. Could some of it be individually owned unit owner value? You know, I don't care if the master policy deductible is a mere $10,000. I think every unit owner should probably carry $25,000 to $50,000 of coverage A. I really do. I really do. And loss assessment coverage to the max of whatever the company will sell. ISO sells $50,000. Some companies let you buy $100,000. If every unit owner had $25,000 of coverage A and $50,000 loss assessment, would that 5 million shortfall probably been filled? I think so. It would have been a rigmarole, But I really think relying on the association to cover the association adequately, I think is sad and dangerous. I want to buy some. Do I want to insure my entire unit? No, because I know they've got something here. But there are nuisance losses that the association master policy won't cover anyways that I could under my HO6 with special form. So, y'all been good. You gotta do one last sign in. Yay. Boo. There you go. So this is your 5th sign in out there. Downsize your screen, minimize your screen, type in your name. And you all know where to find me, right? imortal@massagent.com. I added a bunch of stuff just in case I ran out. That's my email address. There you go, imortal@massagent.com. I work for you. Either have a safe drive home or go have a cocktail and a whatever. Goodbye.